Hello everyone, Benjamin Lindsay here, Associate Editor at Backstage, joined today by Miss Emily Kinney. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
People know you of course from The Walking Dead.
Yes.
You are currently starring in 10 Days in the Valley on ABC.
Yes.
So that's going into its third week this Sunday. What can you tell us about Casey? What's the whole thing about?
Yeah, so 10 Days in the Valley basically follows Keira Sedgwick's character, who's a TV producer and writer for a big TV show, and her daughter goes missing in the first episode. And so each episode is a day in this missing girl case. And everyone around her sort of has secrets, and as this investigation goes forward, you learn more secrets about, all the different characters. And Casey in particular, Casey is plays Keira Sedgwick's personal assistant, who's also having an affair with her ex-husband. So that kind of like the story of that little romance comes out throughout the 10 days, and you kind of learn it's basically like a mystery, the whole 10 days. So now we're going into the third day on Sunday, so you'll definitely learn more about Casey in the next couple episodes.
Excellent. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of drama in addition to the missing persons case.
Yeah, it's sort of like it starts out as this one specific, mystery, but then as the story progresses, you learn that everyone around her sort of has these little secrets or these other lives that she didn't realize were going on.
That's awesome. Everyone tune in this Sunday, episode 3.
Yes.
Now, this is your first working project, or acting project in a little while. You've been focusing a lot on your music as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So what is it about this project that made you say yes? What kind of, going down the checklist, what makes you say yes to a project? Yeah,
well, first of all, I always look to see who's involved, because I always want to work with people that I think are way better than me and awesome, so that I get better. And I got to actually, before I decided to do this job, I actually did get to talk to the writer, Tassie, and she was so awesome, and of course, I knew Keira was in it, and she's amazing, and so the people really made me want to work on it, and then also the script was really good, and then also the character, even from when I made my, I was in Canada at the time, so I didn't audition in person, but I made a tape. And I did feel like I really knew this character, and I do always look for is there something about this character that either I feel like I know someone like that, or I feel like I've been that at some point. You know, like within us, we all kind of have this range of different people that we can be. Maybe you're a different person with your parents than with your friends, or we all have this sort of range of people that we are in our life, and then. What about Casey can I, key into?
Yeah.
I always think, too, about, how an actor or how a character or person talks and how they talk to the people around them, and I felt like I knew how Casey talked, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And how she, she's very eager to please the people around her, and I felt like I could sort of, key into certain things about her. So I guess if the person feels real, then I like the
If it sits comfortably, if it feels like you can bring that to life.
Yeah, if it feels like I can really, I really can know her inside and out, then that makes me really excited to work on it.
And I'm glad you mentioned Tassie. We are such proponents of female filmmakers, showrunners, and I feel like that's so important to support that kind of work. Obviously, you see a week like this week, and the varying differences between the sexes in Hollywood, it's always important to uplift the female side of things. So that must be fun to have her behind the camera as well.
Yeah, I love, I loved her being around. And, she was always on set, and it's not always like that. With different projects I've been in, the writers maybe they're more in the writer's room and not as much on set, or, but in this project, she was on set all the time. And I do feel like making sure that a project stays with its sort of original vision and voice, and keeping it, obviously everyone brings their different talents, and it becomes a collaboration, but making sure to stay true to whatever the intended story was or the intended tone, I think is really important. And she was definitely involved in everything, even the music, and all of those elements were sort of lined up, and it made it it made it easy to know what the tone should be and what to go for. You know,
where
like if there's a lot of different, if there's a lot of different leaders, sometimes maybe it's a bit more confusing. But she was just so great and such a good leader in a quiet way.
That's great to hear.
Now,
I mentioned before, audiences, of course, know you from The Walking Dead, but in preparing for this interview, I didn't realize that you have such roots in New York theater. You made your Broadway debut in Spring Awakening.
Yes.
And then August Osage County.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, those are two of the biggest shows of the past decade, really. So, what was it about? Was theater kind of where you got your training wheels for what you're doing now in film and TV?
Definitely. I mean, when I first moved to New York City, I didn't have a television and film agent. I was just going to Backstage every Thursday and looking up theater auditions to go to. Mm-hmm. And then eventually those casting directors would get to know me and bring me in for stuff. And I started out doing off-Broadway. I did a show at Signature Theater before eventually, doing Spring Awakening.
Yeah.
And August Osage County is still one of my all-time favorite roles I've ever played. That was again one of those moments where I remember reading that script when it was in Chicago before it had even come to Broadway, and they were saying, oh, they're going to probably, because it was I don't know who was playing it in Chicago, but they weren't going to be in the Broadway cast. And I remember reading those monologues and reading that script and being like, oh, I totally know how this person talks, and I've totally been there, and I was doing all the secrets. I mean, I was like, I have to play this role. Yeah. I was like, I thought it was going to be my Broadway debut. I actually ended up getting Spring Awakening before I got August Osage County, so I was in Spring Awakening, and then I remember my agents being like, well, maybe it'll come back around, and it did, and I knew that role was a role that I could really sink into.
Yeah. And you were with it for a while, right?
Yeah, I was with it for a year, so over 300 performances.
That's crazy.
I still love it. I feel like I still remember some of those lines of Jean, and I just totally relate to feeling like the outsider of a big group of adults. Yeah. I mean, even though I'm an adult, I think everyone sort of feels that way sometimes, where they feel like an outsider of this other thing that's happening, and then she's this little pothead who would just unleash all of her emotions to the housekeeper, and I just love that character.
Yeah. It always blows my mind. You mentioned over 300 shows, just the regimen and the practice required for an 8-show a week. Practice on Broadway. So how do you did that kind of work ethic prepare you for a film and TV set in a certain kind of way?
I think definitely. I mean, when you are doing that many shows a week, you know the character inside and out. And so your standards of how well to know everything, your lines and your intentions and all of the work that you do for theater and rehearsing for a month, that becomes regular to you. You're I'm not ready to perform until I've been rehearsing for 3 or 4 weeks, because that's what the standard is. And so then to go to TV and film, where sometimes, you just get a rehearsal the day of before you're shooting, you prepare, though, a lot for that day, and you learn to know your lines inside and out the way that you did for theater. Your expectations of how well to know your material is I think, a lot higher than maybe some actors who are only doing, TV and film. But I don't know. Some, everybody brings, different, different lessons in their own,
Right.
This
was
but
your
for
experience.
For me, I have felt like it's helped me to bring that sort of theater work ethic to TV and film, and to really know and have explored before you even get to set.
And you've of course found a certain amount of success. Besides 10 Days in the Valley, The Walking Dead, we've also seen you on The Nick, Masters of Sex, Flash, Arrow.
Yeah.
So how is it that you typically prepare for an audition to kind of go in there and leave an impression with the people who are going to be casting you?
Yeah, auditions are so crazy because everyone is so different, and sometimes you don't get a lot of time to prepare. And like I said, I'm such a freak about that. I want to know my lines inside and out, but the reality is sometimes you don't get the material for an audition until the day before or a couple days before or whatever. So I guess, I mean, I know a lot of actors and stuff like that are watching, but my advice is I always feel like it's really important for me to first to have some time with the material completely alone. And I mean, like, in a room by myself.
Right.
Reading through it all. Because I do feel like there's something about your own natural instincts, and nobody else is going to say things exactly the way you say it. So I think it's good to key into something that you can bring to the character that is you. For me, anyway. That's what, so to spend time by yourself. Then I think it's also important to actually practice, if you can, with someone. And sometimes that's impossible, like, especially for me, like, traveling. If I get, like, a last-minute audition, I'm like, oh, I really wanted to, like, practice doing the scene with someone. I have some very good friends, and I'm sure other actors know what I mean, where it's like you have those friends that you're like, hey, will you help me with my audition?
Right.
And you're like, I know you're really busy, and everyone's really busy, and you have your own life, but please will you come over and practice my audition with me?
That's the way it goes.
I mean, that's what, but then people are like, actually, yeah, I will, and then will you help me with my audition? So you start to, one of the things that can help you the most is to, in music and in acting, is your friends. I mean, my friends, I still remember practicing my Walking Dead audition with my friend Alex, like, she, like that, and my friend Richard, actually, I remember helped me with my Walking Dead audition before going into the room, and like, your friends, you help each other.
Yeah.
So, having like a good, small, it doesn't matter if you don't have to have like 20 friends, but even just like 2 friends that you can like call on to help you, I think is good. Just so you get a chance to run through it before you're in the room.
Yeah, and be prepared to, that's a give and take, be prepared to be that friend for
someone else, be a good friend to your friends, so that, your other actor friends be like, yes, I will put you on tape for that, yes, I will, so, and it's really hard when you're traveling a lot, but you figure out a way to do it. Even if it's, honestly, even if I'm traveling and there's no one who can help me with or like run through the lines with me, I'll even record the other lines just to practice back and forth. Because I do feel like if you can get at least a couple run-throughs of the back and forth, and you're not going into the room like totally, I mean, maybe this is obvious for some people, but I, like,
no, I think that's valuable. And it's come up a few times now that the way the speech sounds, and you say that it needs to fit and sound natural, and that isn't going to happen unless you're practicing it, saying it out loud.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't just sit in a room and kind of read it.
Yeah, there's nothing like just saying the words over and over, I think, to make them start to feel like your own.
Yeah.
If nothing else, they feel real.
Yeah.
Maybe you haven't had a ton of time to like do research, or had a ton of time to, plan all these amazing things you're going to do. But if nothing else, it feels real.
Yeah. Now, would you cite The Walking Dead? I'm sure when you were practicing with your friends for that audition, you didn't know what that was going to turn into 4 seasons of work, right?
I didn't know it was going to turn into 4 seasons of work, and I also didn't know much about the show because it had only had like maybe 6 episodes when I went into audition, and it was more like people telling me like, oh yeah, that show's pretty good, and at that point it didn't have like the kind of fan base that it did by 3rd season, 4th season and stuff.
So has that been was that a pretty wild ride, being swept up? It's such a fandom. I was at New York Comic Con this weekend.
Oh, you were? Yeah.
And, I mean, so many people turn out for that show in a really cool way. So what was that experience like, being kind of swept up and having those eyes on you in the Walking Dead fandom?
It was very gradual. Like I said, being involved in the 2nd season, it was still like somewhat of a quiet project. I mean, I think people knew it was really good, and we always had those like really amazing and intense comic book fans who were fans of Robert Kirkman's graphic novel, and so we knew we had like a really strong group of friends, but the rest of it was somewhat gradual. Like when I first went down to Georgia to film, it wasn't like anybody knew much about the show. Right. It wasn't like a big deal, and then as the show started airing, it was like, oh, okay, now everyone in that little town, I was staying in Peachtree City, Georgia, was sort of like, oh my gosh, it was like more and more people every day. And then I can even remember, coming back to New York City, and after I'd been away in Atlanta filming, and the difference of like, oh, now I was going down to the coffee shop downstairs, and it was like, people were like recognizing me.
Right.
Where before it's like, I mean, I'd been in stuff, and like,
Right.
nobody really cared, you know? So, I mean, not that nobody cared, but like, nobody recognized you,
Right.
you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So I noticed a difference. But yeah, it was cool, and I got to do things I'd never done before. You know, I got to like go to the premieres in LA and like stay at cool hotels and like do like cool shit that I never, you know, like I love acting, and I never knew. I mean, it took me to really amazing places, so I'm really thankful for that. I've even gotten to, like, I just went to Tokyo to do a comic book convention, got an invite to, you know, so being a part of that world has really been so amazing, and nothing I had expected from being an actor.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, like, getting into comic books was never really what I expected when I thought about going into like theater and acting, and you know. But now I'm in that world, and it's really fun.
Yeah.
So it's really special.
Go along for the ride a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah. Now, this whole time, concurrently, you've also been working on your own music work. You're a singer-songwriter.
Yes.
But what has that been like, kind of juggling the two? Is that challenging at all to have two plates spinning? Or
yeah, you know, it's challenging because of scheduling, and I'm sure like other actors who are watching and stuff know there's this thing of never being able to plan your life. You know, it's like you I'm so sorry, I can't go to this thing, I have an audition, or I got this job and it's just a really good job and I have to take it because I don't know when the next job is going to be. There's this thing of scheduling, and then when you're also planning your own music project, you have to learn to sort of be flexible, because you want to try to plan tour dates and you want to try to plan those sorts of things. So that is difficult. However, I also think they complement each other a lot, because with acting, you can sometimes be at the mercy of someone else for a job, right? Someone has to like pick you, unless you're going to like make your own web series or make your own like one-person show, which is another great thing to do. But with me, whenever I've had downtime, whenever I've been sort of in between jobs, it's sort of been like, oh good, because I wanted to get back to my music project. Right. And I have this other creative project that I have control over, and no one has to pick me, you know? But that also means when you're in the music business, you are the producer, the director. You know, if you're the artist, you're the one hiring on like the band and putting those pieces together. You might have people that help you, like if you have a label or a manager, a distribution deal, you have people helping you with that. But ultimately, you know, you are making the product that then will be sold, where when you're the actor, you're hired to help make the product. Right. So you don't have as big of risk involved. With the actor, I mean, if 10 Days in the Valley is a success, that's incredible, and I'm so happy to be a part of a successful show. If it ends up not being a success, like, well, I still get paid for my work, and I still, you know, still had a great experience. If you know, if I make a song and no one hears it and no one buys it, I don't get paid. Do you know? So like as far as a business, you know, they're different. Yeah. But I do feel like they complement each other, and because of acting, I've gotten to. Tell me if I'm talking too much.
No, you're fine.
Okay, yeah, you guys. All right. I can't tell if anyone's commenting and like being like, okay, bored.
We got some comments coming in, right?
Yeah. But so the other thing why they complement each other, they're like, oh God, get to like I don't know, tell us more about zombies. Like, but because of acting, I've gotten to travel places, right? So I get to go to like Atlanta, or like now I'm living in LA, and all of those things become things you can put into new stories and new songs. You know. Every new show you do as an actor, you meet a new group of people. They become friends who inspire you and end up in your music and end up in your song. You start dating someone new because you've met them working on a show, or you know. So all of these, the environment you're in. For me, a lot of times my lyrics are like walking around New York City, or I'm like, you know, let's go to the beach, and now here we are in California, you know, or like Atlanta, I wrote a bunch of stuff.
About zombies and...
I didn't write about zombies. I did write a song, though, about it's called Last Chance, and that I felt like was inspired definitely by like an apocalyptic kind of world.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so if you listen to the lyrics of that one, it's definitely like you know, it's the end of the world, so this is our last chance to, like, you know,
so there's
make
that creative back and forth between the two.
Yeah, they really inspire each other.
Yeah. Well, speaking of people who are tuning in, would you mind if we open it up to some audience questions?
Yeah, that
awesome.
Would be great.
Okay. Now, actually, my phone is right there. I'll pull this up. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Emily, for sitting with us. Let's see here. All right, let's start with Andy Carter. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Is it fun playing a villain character in DC series? And who's your favorite, Oliver Queen or Barry Allen?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I know enough about I don't keep up to date with Arrow and all that. But I will say the villain question.
Yes,
I mean, I loved playing the villain, and I loved getting to do something. Once again, it's like you do these jobs where it's like, oh, I never imagined, you know, getting to talk to like these electronic bees and like tell them. It was really fun. Arrow and Flash were cool because I never got to play something such like a glamorous character. Like they also made my hair really cool, and like I was super like dressed in like villainy, you know, but sexy clothes. and then I thought it was really fun. It was just a character I've never gotten to play before. I mean, I think I'm more cast as like maybe someone like, you know, like Beth, like a bit sweeter, or maybe a bit manipulative, so that it's like sweet on the outside, but, you know.
Yeah. It's fun to do the thing.
It was fun to just go full force into like, no, I'm evil, and I'm sending my evil bees out to the world
that's
to destroy, you know, everyone. Yeah.
Let's do Emmy Hodges. What is your favorite memory of The Walking Dead, and do you have any souvenirs from playing Beth? Anything in your apartment or that you hang on to? Yeah,
there's a couple things that I've held on to. I'm not much, though, of like a stuffed person, like a pack rat kind of. I don't really.
I don't think you can afford to be living in New York.
You can't be. Yeah. You're just like, there's just literally no more room, and you know, and I can't. One thing that I held on to that's not from set or anything, but like these people, someone, I don't even remember who it was, but someone gave me the best gift, and it was like these Hello Kitty dolls, but they were dressed as Walking Dead characters, and they were so cute. And it's like I don't have that much Walking Dead stuff in my apartment, because like I don't know, I don't really want like tons of pictures, like tons of. What if I just had like tons of pictures of myself? You know, that'd be like sort of weird.
You haven't been to my apartment then.
Oh, you're like well, actually. But I did keep those because they were like. They seemed like cozy and apartment-y, but then they were also like sort of like a nice reminder of like, oh, there's, you know, Herschel. Like the Hello Kitty that was Herschel actually had a leg that like came off, which is super weird, but like also.
And these were fan made.
Fan made. So I'll keep like fan stuff once in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have so many great memories of being on set and Walking Dead. Like, there's one of my favorite memories is like singing around the campfire, the opening of season 3. Just because it was really fun getting to do scenes where it was all together. Because a lot of times we did do a lot of stuff separated. Once we left the prison storyline, we were all more on our own. And so there was a lot of just acting with like just one other person. Or that was one where we were all in a group, and it really was like the end of like a really long first week on set. And I just remember that being like a really special
that's great.
Night. You know, it kind of felt like a real like campfire. Honestly.
And the cameras are just there.
Yeah, it really felt like we did a lot of. I don't think there were a lot of lines too, so it was just like we were just hanging out. You know.
Oh yeah, that's great. And we have a lot of questions for The Walking Dead. A lot of questions for your music as well.
Okay.
Let me see here. Pam Chavez asks, "What can you tell us about your next album, and when will you release your new single?"
Okay. So my next album is going to come out next year sometime, and it's definitely a bit different than my last stuff. My last stuff definitely was more guitar based and a little more folk vibe. I would say a little sweeter vibe. The newer music has a bit more weight to it, just in the instrumentation. I use a lot of synths and Moog and keys rather than like I guess, cuter instruments, you might say, like glockenspiel and, you know.
And are you doing the instrumentation as well?
Yeah, it's basically, right now recording has just been, and I've also done stuff in the past different where maybe I first was like playing gigs and bringing the songs to my band and we were figuring it out that way. And this time around, I've been going to the studio first. So rather than figuring it out with my band, it's just, you know, I write the song on guitar, then go to the studio with my friend Ben, and then me and Ben basically play most of the instruments until we get to a point where it's like, well, neither of us really play drums, so we'll get someone, you know, or like, ooh, this one could use a cool bass line, so let's hire a real bass player, you know, for this part. Or, so most of it has been done that way, which is different. And then the new single I'm going to release at the end of the month, and it's called Mermaid, and there'll be an accompanying video that I also made. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great.
But I think it's a good intro into the sound and vibe of the next album.
Yeah.
And the next album basically follows. It's funny, I went in thinking I was going to write an album about one thing, and I am going to do that. That's like the next one. I always am like a couple of album project. I always have a lot of projects going on in my head. But it became kind of an album all based around this sort of one relationship throughout the course of like years, pretty much, and it influencing me in different ways, and different conversations we had, like coming out sort of like in song. And
do you have a name for that album yet?
Yeah,
or don't want to release that yet? Okay. Well,
maybe I should wait.
That big reveal will come at another point in time.
Yeah.
For Katie Thomason,
I want to still reserve the right to change my mind.
Yeah, of course. I mean? You don't want to be locked
yeah.
into anything. I get that. She's also asking about your music. Do you have plans to come to the UK anytime again? So were you just there recently?
Yeah, I was just in London, and I actually met with some, great, like as far as on the business side, like some music people in London. So I would love to do more shows there, and I think I'm planning to go to the, they have these like Walking Dead conventions, the Walker Stalkers. I'm pretty sure I'm going to the London one, so I'll be then. Maybe I'll try to get a gig around this date. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So keep an eye out for that, Katie.
Yeah. That would be not till next year, but yeah.
And Diana V, Emily, do you have any plans to get into films? Would love to see you on the big screen.
Yeah. I would love that.
And you have a few film credits.
Yeah. I mean, TV is so good right now. It's such a there's so much good writing. For me, it doesn't really matter, like, if it's, oh no, my cool sleeve just got, it keeps catching on things. It doesn't matter if it's, like, theater or TV or film to me. It's more like, first, like, if there's, like, an opportunity to play something I really want to play. So, and right now, really great writers are making movies and really great writers are also making television. So I don't really, I'm not like, oh my god, I have to be, like, in movies and be like a movie star and like work, it's more like, well, if there's a great movie and a great part that, or I just want to be involved in whatever, then I'll do that. And then if it's TV, it's TV. So it doesn't,
It sounds like, and even in theater, it sounds like you're pretty malleable.
Yeah.
If the writing's good, the character's good.
Yeah, if the right like theater thing came along, I would definitely like just do that.
Now, Christina Lynn Campbell, do you prefer playing a character that is more like Beth or like Casey?
I loved Beth because I got to play her for so long, so she almost became like this real person to me, and I loved playing her, and it became in some ways almost easy. The same way when you do a theater show, not that it's easy doing that night after night, but just you don't have to think as much about, now what would their choices be? It's like, well, I know Beth, and her choice would be this. Like, you just start to know.
Right.
For whatever reason, it becomes very intuitive. So I loved Beth, but I do think it's fun to play someone. Casey has a lot more things she's hiding and a lot more layers, and so since that's not as close to me, like I feel like I'm more like Beth. I'm very transparent with all of my emotions, and I feel like Beth is very transparent, and Casey's a little more sneaky and a little more manipulative and a little more like can compartmentalize. So that's, for me right now, is a little bit more of a challenge and more fun in some ways. Yeah.
And we've met her now in the first 2 episodes, but what are you most looking forward to audiences getting to know Casey?
Oh man, I think Casey right now is presenting herself as one way, and then as the show goes on, you'll get to see more into her personal life. As far as, I mean, you do see her personal life as she has this relationship with Pete. You already see that, but her personal life as in like where she comes from, like her home life, and it's kind of very different from the world she's living in of like TV and producers and, you know.
Well, those layers are fun to play with.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And now for a final question here, Liz Torres, I think this is a fun one. What is your worst audition experience? Do you have a horror story?
Yeah, I do, actually. I have a really bad one.
You were like that. Like,
I mean,
right
I
away.
know the worst audition I've had because it was incredibly embarrassing. And since this is Backstage in like New York, I was going in for an audition at Bernie Telsey for the Addams Family, down to the last few with the whole creative team, like Andrew Lippa, who
was this,
like
were you up
like,
for Wednesday or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just flown in like the night before, still learning all the song. You know, it was like, you know, you're learning this stuff like last minute or whatever. And so all morning I was just like, drilling everything, you know, drinking my coffee, real jet lagged though. Go into the audition. I remember seeing my friend. So I'm sitting there, you know, getting ready to go in, and I see my friend Adam. I see my friend who I was in Spring Awakening with, and Andrew. I saw my friend Andrew who I was in Spring Awakening with, and I remember seeing him eat an apple, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so hungry. And then I really started to not feel well, like kind of dizzy. But then it was like, oh, Emily, you ready? And I'm like, yeah, we're totally ready.
Right.
And then I go in and I sing my song, and then I'm still like, I'm like, man, I'm feeling so weird right now. And then I go to do the scene, and the reader is like, it's like tunnel vision, you know? He's like getting smaller and smaller.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I feel like something really bad is about to happen. I'm like not feeling well. And I remember I stopped reading the lines, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not feeling... And the next thing I know, and I basically passed out.
You passed out.
The next thing I remember is Bernie Telsey, like, over me, and, like, hauling... And, like, he's, like, getting, like, assistance. And this is in front of, like, Andrew Lippa, like, all these, like, really great people.
Right.
They're, like, picking me up and, like, hauling me out.
To clear the stage for the next audition.
And then everyone's like, well, did you get the part? Maybe you, like, you know... And I'm like the pity or something. And we're like, oh, she's, like... You know, and I'm like, no, of course I didn't get the part. I mean, I like passed out during the audition, and but yeah, then they were actually really nice. I was like headed over to a rehearsal for like a brush up rehearsal for Spring Awakening. I remember they got me like some food or something.
Oh, that's really nice.
It felt like really bad for me, but it was so embarrassing.
So that's one way to leave an impression, though.
I guess so.
You. Yeah.
I guess so.
I'd be curious if that has happened before. Like,
they
people
told me,
pass out
no,
in front
this
of Bernie
is what,
Telsey.
actually, I remember the assistant, I wish I could remember her name, but the girl who was sitting with me, she was like, you'd be surprised how often actually things like this happen.
Yeah.
And then another friend of mine was like, at least you didn't throw up. And I'm like, oh yeah, that would have been worse.
That would have been worse, yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
You guys are not alone if you've ever fainted in front of Bernie Telsey.
Yeah.
But that's all we have for you today.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And such a fan of yours and the series, The Walking Dead. Everyone tune in to 10 Days in the Valley, ABC, this Sunday, episode 3. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Nice to be here.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.